Joining us now, and Steve, again, we just did hear the first remarks, at least televised, between the incoming White House press secretary Sean Spicer and members of the media. What of their questions and his answers struck you?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we did hear from Vice President-elect Pence beforehand, who basically came out to just wrap up the transition and talk about how that they're, day before inauguration, they've got everything wrapped up, and he bragged about how not only are they on time with everything, but they're under budget, and how they're kicking back 20% of their budget back to the Treasury in terms of the transition. And then, as you mentioned, Sean Spicer got up and gave us a little bit of an idea of what we're going to hear from Trump tomorrow during his inauguration speech. Says it's really, it's going to be less of an agenda, more of a philosophical look at what he wants to do with this country. It's going to be, as he said, a personal speech, and really his vision to, quote, make America great again. I thought the other thing that struck me from this was that Spicer mentioned that they're carrying or keeping on several deputy secretaries, undersecretaries from some key agencies as they wait for their cabinet officials to be confirmed by the Senate. So, they're going to keep an undersecretary of defense, undersecretary of treasury. They're going to keep the special envoy at the State Department to ISIS to sort of carry them through this transition period because they haven't had those cabinet officials confirmed by the Senate yet.
As again, we have been noting throughout the morning, it is a historically slow pace. We have seen vis-a-vis the confirmations of Donald Trump's cabinet picks. I want to ask you about a remark that Spicer made when asked about the diversity, or really lack thereof, of Donald Trump's traditional cabinet picks, 13 of 15 of whom are white, 13 of 15 of whom are male. He, in paraphrasing his reply, said, "The totality of the diversity of this cabinet is second to none," end quote. Diverse in gender and also in its thinking. What'd you make of that response?
Well, I don't think that people who are looking for instance, a Latino cabinet official are going to be satisfied with that answer, mainly because, as you mentioned, it's an overly white cabinet. He did try to point to Elaine Chao, who's Asian, and Nikki Haley, who's Indian American, and Ben Carson, who's African American. But generally, it's overwhelmingly white. There were questions from reporters who represent Hispanic media outlets who are wondering, well, what about a Hispanic or a Latino cabinet official? And he said it's not just about who are going to be the secretaries in this cabinet, but look at the totality of who we hire in this administration, and you'll be pleased. So we're still waiting on that because obviously they have a lot of officials still, a lot of positions still to fill. But as you pointed out, at the top of all these agencies, not necessarily the most diverse. Sean's answer, I think, is lacking to some people who are looking for more diversity.
And he did point out that essentially Republicans in the Senate had worked with an incoming President Obama to essentially rubber stamp so many of his cabinet picks. He had harsh words for Democratic leadership, saying that after that precedent, as he put it, had been set, he had the transition to the Trump team has not seen the same cooperation. He also referred to these cabinet picks, many of whom, in fact, have histories of opposing the departments that they would, in fact, lead. He called them consensus picks. Is this just partisan parsing here, Steve, or something more?
Well, I think he was referring to some of these picks, someone like Elaine Chao, who's, I think you could make an argument she's a consensus pick. There aren't many Democrats who are opposing her, but she's not on the list of people who are going to maybe agree to put forth on day one. I think the big issue here is the Republican leaders, Mitch McConnell, they have asked for 7 cabinet officials to be confirmed on day one, which is the number that Republicans agreed to for the Obama administration in 2009. It looks like they might get 3 tomorrow. And if that's the case, they're saying that the Democrats are standing in the way of this. This is really a continuity of government issue. It shouldn't be about partisanship, and they're really blaming the Democrats for slow walking this. So again, they're pointing to some people who haven't been that controversial that aren't on the list for tomorrow. They're thinking it might be Defense Secretary Mattis and a couple of others, Pompeo for CIA, but not some of these other lower cabinet officials that they think should be on the list for tomorrow.
We also saw the in not just the response of Sean Spicer, but certainly his body language. Steve, when asked about conflicts, about his continuing refusal to release his tax returns, he said he dismissed the question, did Sean Spicer, saying he has gone above and beyond what is required of him. He has no conflicts by law. There are many constitutional scholars and others who would take vehement issue with that. He also was asked, though, about conflicts as it regards Donald Trump's continuing promotions of and visits to his new hotel there in Washington. And he basically said, hey, he goes to his own hotel. He thinks that's pretty smart. And he did mention that it is a stunning hotel in his estimation. What do you make of the dismissing of questions that do remain regarding the president-elect's conflicts as he takes office?
Well, it's interesting. So, on the first question about conflicts of interest, about the business and separating himself, Sean said, we've been asked and answered 100 times this question, and I'm not sure the answers have been sufficient to a lot of ethics watchdogs, mainly because there is still a lot of lingering questions about who does Trump owe money to, how is he really going to separate himself from this business, how is he not going to know what's going on, how is he not going to know what policies he enacts, and how they're going to affect his businesses. He still has those questions to answer. And so Sean is frustrated now answering these questions, being asked these questions. He's going to continue to be asked these questions until they actually give some more specific answers or figure out a way to separate Trump from his businesses a little bit more. On the hotel, the interesting part of that is the landlord of the hotel is actually the United States government. The Trump organization is leasing that building from the U.S. government. And so now Trump is not only the tenant, having the Trump organization as the tenant, but he's also the landlord of that property. And so I think the question was geared toward that. How are you squaring that circle, being both the landlord and the tenant of this property?
These are questions that are not going away. And as you noted there, Sean Spicer's mien as he took them and seemingly dismissed them speaks, if nothing else, to a very long 4 years or so that do stand in his immediate future. Steve Chaggaris, again, as you do cover these final hours of the Trump transition for us, we do appreciate the time.
Thanks, Josh.